Never have there been so many questions about whether we do enough to protect our children. It's not just the allegations about Jimmy Savile, it's the sexual grooming of white girls by groups of largely Pakistani men and whether the authorities have turned a blind eye. Mohammed Shafiq investigates what more can be done to stop the abuse.
What we are talking about is very hardcore criminality.
She went to hell and back in terms of what these perpetrators did to her.
9 men convicted of sexually exploiting vulnerable girls in Rochdale have been given prison sentences totalling 77 years.
The shame of what happened in these streets is detailed in every newspaper.
There were loads of times I tried overdosing, not wanting to live because of all that's happened.
I'm Mohammed Shafiq, a broadcaster in my own right and Chief Executive of the Ramadhan Foundation. Our organisation works to build a better understanding between Britain's diverse communities. And that's why I'm on a personal journey across the north of England and to Holland to discover more about the realities of grooming and child sexual exploitation. Recent scandals centred on my hometown of Rochdale and Rotherham in South Yorkshire raise questions not only about why the Asian men are disproportionately involved in the crime, but also broader questions about how the system failed to prevent it. This is the street where the Rochdale groomers operated from. A recent local council report admitted that the police and social services repeatedly failed to listen to the cries of help from victims. I want to know, what is it that they missed and what were the consequences?
I think what's really important as the starting point is that it can happen to any child from any family.
Hilary Wilmer is an expert on identifying the signs so many social workers and police officers seem to have missed. A definite pattern of behaviour in both the groomers and their victims.
Grooming is a highly sophisticated thing and the men know exactly what they're doing.
She's come to address the professional women members of the Soroptimist. Even in Levy Harrogate, North Yorkshire, there's an acceptance the problem can be found in virtually all towns and cities. And as girls and parents from across the north have told us, most victims are not from a children's home or a dysfunctional family. You will find what you hear next disturbing.
The men had given her vodka, cigarettes, mobile phones and SIM cards.
They received texts and messages on Facebook at all time of the day and night, and sometimes they will demand that they immediately go out of the house.
I remember talking to a young guy at first, going to his house in a car, and then we ended up in a hotel. I was so drunk and I woke up with no clothes on.
And then she may be passed from man to man.
I've slept with a lot of men. I think if I calculated it would be like 30.
The consequences of this happening are lifelong, really, both for the child and for the family.
There are 2 of you, 2 parents trying to make a living, and you have a daughter you love falling apart in front of you in the most horrific circumstances. It affects all aspects of your life.
There were loads of times I tried overdosing. I cut myself. I've got scars on my arms and stuff, not wanting to live because of all that's happened.
In the cases of the victims and parents we spoke to, their horror and suffering were compounded when police and social workers failed to take action.
We gathered photos, mobile phone numbers, number plates, gave them all to the police, gave it to them on a plate.
I think if I'd have had more help, I would have stopped earlier, or possibly not even started.
You think the police will step in, you think social services will help you, you think all that would make arrests more likely. That's what you think, but that's not what happened.
Some police forces and social service departments have recently dedicated more staff and introduced more training to tackle grooming. But given the failures by authorities right across the north that we've uncovered, it's fair to say that strategies to get gang grooming off our streets are still patchy in England. Which is why I've come here, to Amsterdam. When it comes to developing an action plan to tackle child sexual exploitation, the Dutch government seem to be around 10 years ahead of the British, and they're claiming some degree of success. Police and social services began to knit together a national approach a decade ago.
In the year 2002, we figured out that it was necessary to cooperate with different parties. But if you see the situation in 2002 and you compare it to 2012, you see an enormous increase of agencies, of organizations, which all combine their efforts in solving this problem. You can't solve it just as law enforcement or police alone.
And in the spirit of this, the Mosque of Amsterdam have played their part. I've never flinched from saying my British Pakistani community should confront child sexual exploitation. And this man has done the same in Amsterdam by campaigning against grooming within his Moroccan community.
In my own neighborhood, there was a problem of guys who were grooming some girls. What we are talking about is very hardcore criminality. I started to make alliances with mosques all over Holland. We combined forces and we tell other imams of our experiences.
In the UK, our imams and our mosque say this has nothing to do with them. Yet here in Holland, you and other imams and the mosque have taken a proactive stance. Why is that?
I think it's very important as an imam to take responsibility to raise social issues, put them on the agenda and to get rid of the taboos within Muslim communities. I think that for England and other countries it's important that younger, new imams develop mosques which are prepared to tackle the issues of modern-day society. Young people are looking for mosques that are relevant.
We made a lot of anti-propaganda against those perpetrators, and I hope that my brothers in England will do the same.
Right, welcome to Keithley.
Back in West Yorkshire, Ibrahim's sentiments certainly have resonance, but the reaction of English mosques is, in my view, complicated by hostility from the far right and the English Defence League, which call this demonstration in Keighley following allegations of child grooming.
These are here in Keighley to support the local people of this town.
Whilst the English Defence League calls for the Pakistani community to stand up and take action, a youth group has been doing just that a few miles away from the demonstration.
Only a few weeks ago, the EDL were here on our doorstep.
This is an anti-grooming workshop attended by members of Keighley's Pakistani community. It's run by volunteers, and as far as I know, it's completely unique.
It affects us very severely because when a picture like this is flashed across the news and they are groomers, imagine what kind of impact that is going to have on how people perceive you and us. This is why workshops came about through our normal youth work that we work with young people on social issues. That's the best thing to do, is advise the girl. We have received absolutely no support from the government in terms of financial backing. So what the groomer is doing is isolating the victim from the family.
We talk about and we tackle situations like this. We started doing general studies in 6th form. Previously we never done it.
Schools are taking more precautions in actually educating younger people.
It's not often that I'm speechless, but tonight's been an amazing experience to witness this workshop. Now, if we can deliver this in every part of our country, then I believe we can start to eradicate this evil.
I know I've been abused.
This educational video is encouraging victims to speak out and be heard.
They just wanted me for sex. I think everyone has a few regrets, but if I could, I'd go back and have a word with myself.
I still believe that there's an overrepresentation of Pakistani men convicted of child grooming, and my community has to confront this. At the same time, wider society has to recognise that 80% of child sexual abuse is carried out by white men. For me, the story shouldn't be about comparing the racial identity of abusers, but be about protecting these vulnerable young victims.